Well, we're recording now.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Gail of Gaia with Free Range, and I have on the line Scott Lemriel, the author of the Sayres Agenda, and a man of a great deal of experience that we would like for him to share with us.
The Emerald Doorway is another book I've published as well.
Yes, you've published a lot of things. You've done music too.
I'm a composer, yeah.
You're quite a multi-talented being there.
Screenwriter, yeah. Then some TV work and still going into feature film and stuff like that. But not for mindless entertainment, more for helping to change a world into an unexpected new direction.
Yes, I see that. And that's one of the things I'd like to see your book, The Sayres Agenda, become a movie because it could enlighten so many people.
A friend of mine had me on his wide, there's a lot of followers, put a little blurb in there during one of his shows about people want to find out hidden truth or truth about many things, extraterrestrials included, and what's really coming, that to go check out my website. So he made it very simple. Little kitty allergies, I think. Very simple. Doesn't have to explain a lot. People can find out for themselves. That's what my work's about. Helping people find out the deliberate hidden truth within themselves and the universe, around this planet, its own history, through their own direct experience, because otherwise they're not going to know for sure for themselves what is true and what is not. So I work in the area of helping people have their own direct experience with whatever I do.
So you help them to help themselves, basically, is what it boils down to.
I help them to understand how to co-create, giving permission to beings and energies in the universe that can help them recover what was taken from them without their permission before they found themselves born on this planet with no memory of the past.
What was taken from them? Could you explain that further?
Well, let me ask you, how much do you know about who you were before you were born here?
Absolutely zero.
And how much do you remember about your abilities as a being that aren't physical, have nothing to do with the human body? Some.
I'm thinking there must be something.
The point is you're beginning to be aware of a lot of what was deprived you, suppressed in your subconscious, that is, you can recover, that you can awaken under the right conditions.
Yeah, it's that's why I was kind of emphasizing that. I don't think we realize how much we don't know because we get on the hamster wheel of life and we don't have time. We don't think about these things.
Right. Well, if you're so busy paying, mandatory work and mandatory taxes and everything else, you don't have a lot of time to dwell on what's going on outside of Earth or what you're doing when you're out of your body at night, when you put it to sleep. People are so focused on surviving and next year and going to work and all that, this part is done intentionally to keep people from really finding out who they are, what their real purpose for existing is.
Well, you do see that in operation, that's for sure. I think I would like to talk about what was the manner in which this memory or this information is suppressed. Besides keeping us so busy, we never have time to really think about it.
Well, the thing is, what was done to people that are on Earth today?
Yes.
Wasn't done to them in this lifetime. To a few, yes, but not to most. Most of them were incarnated here, born through parents with all that memory already suppressed before this lifetime. And they get into bodies that have had in an ancient history off-world, beyond this world, when beings were in other realities and other planets before they came across this planet. Things were done through the misuse of science to create an artificial subconscious domain in beings that did not have one, in which terrorizing things can be programmed that influence the nervous system of the human being to misdirect their decisions while they're alive. And it's not something, these programs, these dominating programs were not put into the brain of a person or in the body. There aren't little chips under the skin. People don't remember on Earth what they are that's a being. They think of themselves as a physical body. They look in the mirror and say, well, I'm a brain and a body, and I've got a soul somewhere over here that I'll find out about something. They think this is the thing, and that's like a soul. They got it all backwards. The thing that's making the body move, the eyes work and speak and even run is the Atma, what we call soul on earth. More advanced beings from other worlds call Atma. It means it's like an atom or a spherical form of energy taken right out of the primary source behind all life, made of the same energy, individualized. And it's not energy that is made in time and space. It's not made out of molecules and protons and electrons and neutrons. It is an energy behind that supports all of that. And that's what makes up each individual being, not a body. When a person imagines something, they think they're making it up in the brain, in their head, between their ears. And this is not true. There's not a verifiable PhD science on planet Earth anywhere that can prove the brain is seeing anything when you imagine something. There's no motion picture screen or projector camera in the brain cells in your brain for you to see stuff. It takes an objective being looking at stuff to see stuff. The brain is not designed to see anything. It's not its function. It's a multi-billion circuited neuron center to run the complexities of form, take energy from beyond the body into it, and keep it alive. The biggest organ in the human body is the skin. If you painted all the skin on a body and your lungs were perfect and closed off all the pores, you would suffocate. Because you get oxygen and exchange of energy through the pores of your entire skin, not just the lungs. So you would suffocate if you could breathe just fine, but all the rest is closed off, you'd die anyway. The energy isn't, the reason I'm bringing that up is because in human beings on Earth, what are called genomes, these little blocks that make up the DNA, that's blue eyes or green, or slightly green pink eyes, there's little switches. And they are actually switches that are operated through precise frequency. And if you know the frequencies of how to turn off and on a billion genomes on the DNA of a human double-stranded DNA helix, you can change anything, scientifically speaking, and higher spiritual science, if you want to call it that. And you could literally regrow a limb or have a body stay 36 for 1,000 years.
That'd be nice.
It's up to being. But Earth is not a planet full of beings who remember who they are, not yet. They think it's God's will. They come here as the soul. They flip this word around soul. They don't understand it. They don't know even what it is.
We have been so programmed in so many ways, and everything is just the opposite of what we think. Just like we think that we're a body running a soul, we're just the opposite. We're a soul running a body, or an Atma, which is what
is what you are.
Yeah.
That body there that's speaking to me and looking at me and on this radio show thing, this little thing we do, would not function at all if you, the being, were not animating it, running it. Think of the brain and the pineal gland in the center of the brain as the controlling mechanisms through which a being runs a body. It is not a body. People are worried about clones and cloning. They talk about it all the time. The problem with cloning is cloning doesn't work. If you're a human and you clone a human body, it's not going to run around and do anything unless you put an Atma in it or force an Atma unconsciously to run it.
And that can be done?
Yeah. If you can make a being unconscious enough to believe they're under the subservient control of some tyrant, you can compel them to get in a body and run a clone. Otherwise, it won't run at all. It doesn't run itself. It's just weird. And this kind of thing, this kind of science, is many hundreds of millions, even billions of years old out beyond Earth. People on Earth are playing around with DNA just at the very beginning of understanding it, where they've programmed in supercomputers. They've actually charted out the human double-stranded DNA genome sequence.
Yeah, they've done that.
And for a while, they thought that a lot of DNA that wasn't on was junk DNA from the past, from evolution. Then they find out, wait a minute, it's not junk, it's just not on.
There you go.
And they're trying to figure out how to turn it off and on and work with it. And that science doesn't exist on this planet yet. There are people here who, as you know as well as I, would abuse it terribly. they had such control. There are tyrants out in the universe that have had such control, affecting beings in a history people don't recall, that ended up bringing the population to this planet we have now with no memory, over a history far more ancient than they would possibly dream of. Human beings and other life from other worlds have been being brought here, animal, plant, mammalian life, all kinds of things, for the past 65 million years. Maybe a little later than that. 55 to 65 million years after the dinosaurs were made extinct, when human beings in this form could live here without the threat of monstrous dinosaurs and that kind of thing. So there's a history about Earth and our solar system and its relationship to the rest of the universe and human beings that people on Earth were deliberately made not to understand when they once did, long ago. We're talking about the Atma now, not bodies.
Okay.
The body
you got to keep that straight in your head.
The brain, the body you grew up with, has no memory of other lives, doesn't know what you were doing a billion years ago as an Atma running around playing with bodies in the 4 lower dimensions. Because it's the brain that was grown from a fetus and then trained to understand language and movement coordination. And when you become an adult, more of the influence of the Atma has more direct link through the body. But that means you can run a body unconsciously. You can go to bed at night and go to put it to sleep and identify with it so strongly that when the body goes unconscious, you go unconscious with it because you think in terms of being a body. When in the real training of it is when you put the body in the trance state called sleep, which you do at night as an expert. All the people on Earth are experts at this, putting their body to sleep. They don't realize that they're actually, as an Atma, making the pineal gland secrete melatonin, which creates serotonin, which runs the body on automatic while you're gone. That's what's really happening. But people are doing it unconsciously. There's a part of them that is running a body very well. Getting it up in the morning when you wake up. Sometimes they remember a brilliant dream of flying through the air. Collars are more real than here. And then they pass it off from their upbringing and misdirected training as a fantasy, as something that was neat, but let's go pay taxes, or let's go to work, or let's do this, or let's not think about other worlds. There might be life on other planets. When you get a being so far closed down that they wonder if there's life on other planets, they don't have to worry about some evil catching them in the future when they get out of their body or saint. They've already been caught. They're already here with no memory. There's no further down they can go except up. There's only one direction they can go, and that's to recover what was taken from them. It's as far down the scale as you can get being on this planet, in the lowest of dimensions in the physical universe on planet Earth.
So what was the purpose of this Earth?
It's like any other world. It's to be able to experiment with body forms that are able to channel higher faculties of the Atma. This body and all DNA is an experiment.
But then how come we're all closed down? I mean, we're not doing...
It's got nothing to do with the body. That has to do with the Atma. Mm-hmm. The being.
Okay.
Not the body, not the brain. The Atma is the thing that sees in imagination into the multidimensional universe, that sees a beautiful woman standing by a waterfall, a hummingbird. You know, when you're daydreaming, oh, wow, that was that. I'm thinking about the beach. Oh, wish I was out. I can see yourself running through the water and the sand, your swimming trunks on. And then the teacher interrupts you and says, come out there, pay attention to this test. The person's actually the Atma, not the body, seeing that wherever it is, in another parallel dimension, in another reality somewhere. But they're not aware that's what they're doing because they've not been taught anything like this growing up. No grounded reality on it at all. To them, it's just fantasy made up in their brain.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nothing in the brain that can see anything visually, sound, and light. It's not what it's for. So who or what is seeing things in the imagination? And when they're really distorted and you have a bad dream and it's all kinds of a mix of stuff, it's because the person has put that body to sleep at night with fear of the future, dread of something, Armageddon, whatever they've been brainwashed to believe by religious leaders who have a vested interest in money and power over their flock, and governments control the religions to keep people that way. Ignorant. believing in something they're going to get when they die, but because you can't know it now. Therefore, they don't have any direct experience and they're controllable. You start to wake up to this, you begin to take back that control. And you take it back as an Atma, because the Atma has always had power, domination over any form of negativity, negative being in or out of bodies, or misuse of extraterrestrial or other dimensional technology. Because that's only relative to the lower 4 dimensions of time and space. The Atma did not get created in and isn't part of time and space. It is made of an energy that is not nuclear. Okay? It's not atomic. It's not atoms. It's not protons. It's not quarks. It's not electrons. It's more like an energy that does not supports all physics in the lower dimensions, but does not follow the same rules. They're finding that out in the Large Hadron Super Collider in Switzerland, when they crash particles together, big miles of this whole circular thing, and they crash them into each other to measure the energies they emit. And then they find there's energies behind atoms that is not atoms. They haven't got a clue what it is, but they know it fills the void of space. Dark matter is not dark except to physical eyes looking at it. And the Atma would look into that dark matter between stars, between planets in the so-called void of space, and see it as a brilliant light. Human eyes can't see that high into the spectrum. So people also think in terms of, well, you can't go faster than the speed of light, 286,000 miles per second. Well, that's only what the physical eyes can detect. A rate of vibration. You can see physical light within a certain spectrum. Once it gets beyond that, you don't see nothing from the physical eyes. But all that energy at much faster rates beyond time and space are there. People that have figured out higher science about getting around the universe and anti-gravity craft going through interdimensional doorways did it because they could access energies and how they work that are not physical in the laws of physics. And because if you can't understand that, you can't understand what will get around it. You have to think in a higher way, go into a higher reality. The imagination is the way the spherical structure of energy that an Atma or soul is. It's its ability to see in any direction in creation, run bodies on different levels, and gain experience in order to become, which is the purpose of planets and suns and moons, a conscious, trustworthy co-creator with the source behind all life. And that source is not some God in the throne that owns and controls all the souls. They got that all wrong on Earth.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's religion for you.
Because we're meant to be conscious co-creators with that source, to come up with new ways of doing things, to change the problems, the way the lower universes are run, how evil works. It's an experiment, and it's being retired. It's a failed experiment in all of creation. And people say, well, who was the evil? Who started it? Was it Satan? Was it this? Was it that? No, it was each one of them, each one of you.
Every one of us is responsible for the experiment of evil. Is that
correct? Because in the beginning of beyond time and space, where we come from, in higher worlds, beyond what the Buddhists know as the void, there are many higher planes. They don't work like they do down here. They aren't positive and negative. They don't have a cause and effect there. You have cause, but you're responsible for whatever you cause. Because there's no time and space in that pure one energy, it's not dualistic. Everything done there is done in a way that benefits everybody there. Now you get that people motivated in that reality to change the lower worlds, which are fixed and finished. Can't change fixed and finished things unless you unfix and unfinish them. And that wasn't done until recently to the lower dimensions, that you couldn't change anything down here. Now there are beings in the higher levels and beings in advanced extraterrestrial and other races in different dimensions that are working to change the way the lower dimensions are administered, run. And we're in the middle of this change while we're living, most people living unconsciously as bodies on Earth, not remembering who they are. That wave of energy that's moving through creation is coming here. It's not an Armageddon at all. It's not the end of the world. It's an unexpected, uplifting transformation for this planet and its people. All life, good and bad and indifferent, all life. It involves every living thing.
Is that like that event flash that they're talking about, or is that something totally
I don't
different?
know what you're talking about. I don't get involved with other people's concepts and ideas and philosophies on this planet. I
Mhm.
came to this world to help bring about the awareness of this transformation to hidden leaders, classified people, governments, and all the common people, animals, plants, everything.
Mhm.
We don't think like that. We don't think in terms of whether there's life on other planets. We think of how can we change the life on all the billions of worlds in a positive, constructive direction without killing things in the process, which was done before.
Oh.
Wipe out whole worlds and start them over. Kill off bodies, bring people up in the higher worlds, put them back in the bodies, destroy the worlds, destroy galaxies, rebuild them, put them back, try it again. That's been done many times.
And still, and nothing changes.
Nothing changed. Right. So what does that mean? I mean, what does it mean? How do you get people involved? First of all, what has to be done is people on a planet like Earth have to be risen in vibration, energy enough to begin to see over the dark forests they're living in and unconsciousness as bodies. They have to be able to start to remember, recall life before this life, because they were all in it. And then they have to start to understand what it is the purpose for their existence is, because they all knew it once. And because it's still in their being, it can be recovered, awakened, enlightened, brought to the surface. That means people need to be able to look at honestly what is in the subconscious, an area they're not conscious of, that's controlling them, that is terrorizing, that happened to them in the past, which they're terribly afraid of looking at because they've been told if you look into finding out what you are as a being, we'll do this to you again. It's programming. It's like a
Yeah,
computer.
that is big.
That's a computer program. It's like how do I describe this? People they do their best to try to figure out what implants are. There were people on this world who were trying to devise a technology, microscopic implants under the skin, in an attempt, experimenting on innocent citizens to try to find a way to reverse what was done to them through the misuse of advanced extraterrestrial technology, hidden leaders, elite.
That was the original purpose?
Yes, but it wasn't done with implants. The atma is spherical, what you really are, made in the image of the source, is not this.
Yeah, not this.
There are billions of types of bodies with higher genetics through which an atma can run higher faculties, know what it's doing in multi dimensions, and have the wisdom of that and bring it through a body, not thinking it's a body, but running it, and share that in a dimension like physical universe or the astral or causal or mental universes. 144 parallel dimensions in all of them. It's huge. And people are running body forms in the main divisions in the lower dimensions, living separate lives from them, and one atma is running all of that. We're multidimensional beings.
Yeah, that's hard for people to comprehend.
Right, of course it is, because they didn't grow up with any idea of it on this planet. There's no teachers or anybody teaching it legally. You can't go, gurus for the most part didn't even know it. Typical gurus from India maybe have their heaven in the causal plane, third dimension up, third heaven, if you want to speak biblically or whatever.
Mhm.
And the beings that run those planes are basically tyrants. They demand worship. They convince you through their host of, I don't want to use certain terms, but their subordinates, to get you to volunteer to come back to life in a planet like this for God's will with no memory. And you're supposed to get it right the next time when you don't have all those lives and depth and wisdom and history at your disposal. You just make terrible mistakes. You keep compounding the karma. You keep compounding the law of physics. Everything you do is accountable for it. Every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. So good and bad feelings and thoughts are in the atmosphere of this planet. The ionosphere, you know why you can send a radio wave around the curvature of the planet? Because it hits the ionosphere and bounces off.
Yeah.
All the thoughts and feelings of the worst grotesque things that were done to people, good and bad, are still in the atmosphere of this planet. And people just open themselves and tune into these different influences that are designed to stimulate what's in the subconscious they're not aware of, to keep them fixated, focused on the limitations of their body on a planet. And God's will is you, thou shalt not know my will, or thou shalt not know me. That's absurd. They are comprised of the very same energy as that source, and they have the same faculties of comprehension that it does, exactly on a smaller scale, like a drop of pure water in a mighty ocean of the same sound and light of energy. You plug that drop into the whole thing, and you have access to the whole thing.
It is so amazing that we could be dumbed down as far as we have been.
That's Earth. Earth is not the only planet that's been dumbed down like that. This planet and many others were caught up in a war in galactic history in the Milky Way 500,000 years ago that came to an end. Mm-hmm. Earth was made like a Switzerland under treaty, in which case no one race, good or bad, was allowed to own it. They could influence, they could have secret bases here, they could do scientific research. Some tyrants could bring their slaves over to do the dirty work like mining. Sumeria, Aztec, Yucatan, other cultures, Egyptian, Rome, these were the originally mining colonies to get resources off the earth. And they brought their human slaves with them, demanded worship and sacrifice. The cultures people are taught as children on this planet were all tyrant, diabolical organizations of people that are influenced from outside this world, often illegally under treaty, and they came to an end, all of them. Nobody knows where the Aztecs and Mayans went, right? Where'd the Mayans go? They just gone. We know that a lot of the Aztecs were killed by the Spaniards, conquistadors, but not all of them. There are cultures on this planet that simply came and went. There's no history to describe what happened to them. Some of them were simply removed, brought somewhere else. This planet is made up of beings and races indicative of a whole planetary systems, African American, whole world systems that have that skin color, that are human, that all their people are like that. Asian with the Japanese eyes and things, whole planetary cultures like that. Caucasians, they call Nordics. No race on this planet is native to this planet. No race ever evolved on planet Earth that are human beings, ever. There's no missing link that will ever be found and provable in colleges or universities on this planet, ever, because human beings did not originate here.
That makes so much more sense, because I remember that there was this book called The Journey of Man, trying to indicate that the color changes and all this was related to.
By the way, that's all theory, and it still is.
It just doesn't make much sense. It really does.
It's just where they're trying to put the pieces together from little access to higher faculties they have. You know, you can have a PhD with 7 PhDs on this planet. There are very few have ever done that. In fact, there may not be any. 2 or 3 maybe.
And how much of it was
misinformation? And let's say they're not classified, so they're not privileged to know extraterrestrial exists, because the classified system spends trillions of dollars to make sure the public does not know what they know, because it's threatening. And they thought it's protecting the public. There are good and bad outside of this universe, highly more technologically advanced than we are. Mostly good. If it hadn't been policed, the very tyrant races that fly among the stars, all along, everybody on this earth, 3/4 of the people who would have been murdered violently, dead, or eaten, and the rest's enslaved. 500 million is much easier to control than 7.5 billion. If we hadn't had help already, help that doesn't like to interfere in running countries and governments on other worlds, but enough to keep them from nuclear war and other things, to help them over the hurdle of evolving past the selfish, self-indulgent, arrogant, egotistical bunch of nonsense that's perpetrated out here on this world is normal. It's anything but normal compared to hundreds of millions of other worlds in just 1/4 of our Milky Way galaxy I know about. And they don't work like planet Earth, and they're far more advanced than us. So is it really plausible to believe we're going to have a classified space program go out into the universe with nuclear weapons and radioactive warp drives, consciousness of selfishness and lying and deceit, and take it out in the stars and impose it on those races? Never, ever going to happen. They're far more evolved, and they don't have subconscious minds. They can see through all the crap people pull. And they're not going to tolerate it. That's why this solar system is quarantined. And it is. Not by us. Not by the classified space program or a hidden government? No.
But I don't think people want to be this way. I
No, of
really
course
don't.
they don't. The people in the classified systems, most of them don't want to keep lying to people. They want disclosure. They're just afraid. They don't know how to get off this lie they've perpetuated since the end of World War II, especially in the beginning of the so-called struggle with the former Soviet Union. National Security Act. Now we create this thing that's never passed by Congress by majority, and we impose it on people. We can take your money and we can do what we want, but we don't have to tell you anything. And we can fund these projects and reverse engineer alien technology and keep the majority of the people ignorant about it. And they did it originally to get people to be safe, to feel safe, to be baby boomers, to rebuild a damaged world after World War II. That's why they did it. 35 countries did it, agreed to it. There's the start of your hidden government, the official one, the classified one, the one that is not elected by people, the one that could survive a nuclear war and still run things kind of people. That was their thinking. The original bylaws of the classified structure in the National Security Act was to disclose fully to all the people when they felt it was safe to do so. That was originally there. They meant well. They're just caught up in it for so long now, they don't know how to get off it. So they are getting some help from friends of mine from out of town. How to get off that to the public so nobody will be shot, nobody will starve in the streets. Financial systems won't just all go up in smoke like everybody's touting, afraid of it every year, and it never happens. Money's an illusion. The banks collapse. We're going to starve in the street. And the next minute, all of a sudden, the banks have all this money. Everybody's just fine. Northrop Grumman and all its employees still get paid. We just give $40 billion to here and $40 billion. You just make it up. People believe it, so it works. But none of it's backed by gold. So where are they making up this money from? From bullion that's backing it? No. No. It's bark from a tree.
And it's all based on a belief system.
A programmed belief system, a system devised by extraterrestrial tyrants long ago to control masses of people. The idea of money and coinage was not invented on this planet. People think there are brilliant people and ancestors created these wonderful cultures, all tyrant, by the way, demanding sacrifice. We'll feed them to the lions. We're Sumerian. You must worship a reptilian overlord with human slaves. Worship, sacrifice yourself. We are your gods. That was Sumeria. Then you've got Yucatan and Mayan and Aztec, all mining colonies. People brought here to slave and do the dirty work. They had their great god Quetzalcoatl or whatever. They worshipped as a tyrant. I mean, they basically were extraterrestrial, propping themselves up as God.
Imposter gods, I call them.
Hasn't people ever wondered? They know extraterrestrials have been coming here. Haven't they ever stopped to wonder why somebody didn't just come down here and bomb us and destroy everybody like on Independence Day? Big cockroach beings and ships. They just want to blow everything up. Tyrants in outer space don't work that way. They aren't stupid. They don't come and blow up industry. They enslave or get in control of the elite with very few personnel, misusing technology. They get them to control the elected people, and they get the elected people to control the people. Everything still works right, but resources are shipped off world for the past 65 years to get antiquated extraterrestrial technology. It is a moronic.
Is that still happening?
Yeah, it's an idiotic agreement. Nobody, Eisenhower and people like this, Truman, none of them would have done it if they had not been influenced without their awareness, against their better judgment to do it. So that's real history. So I don't blame any of them. I know a lot of people on Earth are all caught up in political debates and what's true and what isn't. I don't have time for it. I don't get in debates with anyone. Completely waste the time I have here to help bring this change about that's underway. So I don't do that. Let other people do that if they want to waste their whole life arguing over bits and pieces of what they think is true. How can you argue over what's true when you don't even remember who you are and what lives you've lived in other worlds and extraterrestrial technology and other dimension out? If you don't remember any of that, how can you debate anything with any real wisdom? just arguing over prejudiced and biased beliefs. Most of them belief only, not actual experience.
Yeah, isn't it funny that the word lie is right in the middle of the word belief?
Yeah. Well, here's the one I always get that I think is the biggest kicker. Human. The one word that will connect you directly to the source with no intermediary that you came from, originated from. Beyond the void known to Buddhists, right to the source of the energy underlying, supporting everything, which is not matter, not atomic. It is energy, but not in the way people understand it here. Is hue, because it makes a sound vibration that's sympathetic to, parallel harmonious with the actual sound under everything. So when you do it, it begins to open the door in the pineal gland through one of the rods and cones, which are like those you have in your eye, except they're each tuned to different frequencies and other realities. They are doorways through which the being brings back memories of what it's doing when it's out of its body, so this self can know it too, with its limited capacity. So you see, remembering back, bringing back awareness of what you're doing when you're out of your body at night is important to what we call enlightenment. Because unless this body form you're running is aware of all this other stuff that's going on, it's as dumb as a brick. I mean, it's on Earth, running around, eating, going to the bathroom, raising kids, working, paying taxes, the whole bit. Living and dying on belief with no confidence. It means no experience. Therefore, they're living in doubt and uncertainty. Doubt and uncertainty are negative emotional states.
They're strong programs.
Fear is behind doubt, and terror is behind fear. They are all artificially created negative programs that people believe are part of their true nature and character. They're not. How do you get people to wake up to the fact that their emotions of good and bad, feeling good, feeling depressed, negative views of the future, fearing and seeing with your imagination, fear about coming thing events? Tyrants control that to keep people under their dominion. Get everybody to believe in an Armageddon. It's like a cheater's way to try to get blown up out of here to go to heaven, so they don't have to be responsible for anything. The Savior did it all for me, so I'm not responsible. I don't blame them. What else do they have on this planet? They've got no alternatives being presented to them most of the time, to where they can have real direct experience about the source, divine spirit, omnipresent first sound behind all creation. The first word in the Bible isn't a word at all. It's not printed. It's a sound. It's an energy current running through all things. And we are part of that. We have a right to be in communion with it telepathically. When you imagine walking through lavender grass on another planet, the beautiful 3 moons up there, life on them, and a waterfall, and beautiful sunny day, and beautiful birds with long V-shaped split tails that look like blue jays, but they have double sets of wings and they can hover like a hummingbird, and they have beautiful singing voices and they can talk with you. Where or who or what that you are is doing that. The brain? No, it doesn't have any of that programmed there from birth. You didn't learn that in college, so where do you get it from? People never stop to reason this properly. If you can see any of that in your imagination, what you're calling daydreaming, you're actually looking into the multi-dimensional universe and seeing it somewhere. That is the functionality of a higher faculty of what the Atma is. The Atma is spherical, has a white core, has a layer of teardrop-shaped self-effulgent lights around it, numbers of them. It goes from white through the spectrum of color. And these have to do with different planes or dimensions, by the way. From white to orange, to red, to green, to blue, to violet, to lavender. Gold light coming through the whole thing, emitted from the core. A white core, a pure source energy. That's the structure. And each one of those drops in these different levels, these little teardrops, are faculties of perception and knowing, not faith. The Atma is part of the source itself. It knows. If you wake up that, then you know. You're not,
Wow.
fear and doubt get put aside, because this sphere, misuse of technology can put an energy field around the Atma. Tyrants can't do anything to destroy what this is, but they can put an artificial energy around it through which you look at the universe, distort it, and program things in there so you look at terror and torture and domination of a superior extraterrestrial race over you subconsciously, so that it affects your nervous system of a body you're running in a negative way. Adrenaline, hair stands on, you get afraid. You start thinking and feeling and seeing imaginative negative things. It's control. Because they can use the energy of a person if they can get you to split your imagination in two directions at the same way that are opposed to each other, good and bad. And it grounds it, just the charge of energy in science, it grounds it to the earth. A person's creative momentum forward gets stopped.
Oh, man.
Hover around in a body and don't remember anything. And they're afraid to remember. I hear people say, you can't get out of your body because Satan will get you. And I say to them, although I don't even bother talking to them because they're going to fight with you, Satan's already got you. If you're going to think about a Satan catching you, you're giving more energy to evil than you are to Jesus or anybody else. You're supporting it more with your thoughts, even talking about it. And so they'll think that they're afraid to get out of their body, and there'll be people in churches and other, not just Christianity, any of them, teaching people not to get out of their body because then the devil will get you. Tyrants love that because they don't realize they're so deluded. They're already caught on an earth with no memory. I mean, none. And they're wondering if they're going to get caught. And then they know they're going to die one day. Their body's going to die. They're going to have to get out of their body anyway. So their whole premise is founded on nothing. Silly. It's fear of the future, fear of the unknown, and it keeps them stuck. So you want to get people to let go, because the Atma has always had this ability to drop the secondary creation of evil as an experiment in the lower dimensions. It has mastery over that. But if you can be convinced to use your imagination, to trap yourself, to limit yourself, to say, I don't know, can't know the source, I'm too ignorant, I need to be under someone, then you can be brought into a state through the misuse of your own energy to trap yourself. Tyrants get people to trap themselves.
Wow. I remember I got told one time in a class that, well, this was an acting class, but it said, I get in my own way. And I think people do that all the time without even realizing it.
Well, you don't get in your own way, but you do pay attention to programs that stimulate your nervous system that are negative. And then you focus on it, give them energy, and add momentum to it with your imaginative, pure energy of your being. And it creates the circumstances in this omnipresent field of energy, because it's a co-creator. Divine Spirit is a co-creator.
Okay.
It means it doesn't come along and save anybody and do it all for them. If you imagine something in it, it will co-create it into existence with you. The whole thing, the big power, is what manifests things, not one being. The whole thing does this. People imagine something in it, good and bad. It sets up the circumstances and co-creates it with you. Obviously, that's to eventually teach people to only create that which is good and uplifting for all life, or they're going to suffer. Wow. And they don't realize they're doing it.
I wish I would have known this a long time ago.
Yeah. And if somebody's going to blame it on the devil, they might as well look in a mirror.
Yeah.
Because all of us as Atmas, the original true form, made in the original image, if you want to use that term, is not a human body. And it's this spherical. You ever wonder why planets and suns and moons are all round?
No, not until you said that. That's really interesting, though. That the
pattern after the being,
the image of God, so to speak.
It's patterned after what we are as energy. Yes, of course. Couldn't be anything else. There are beings who run the mechanics of not only galaxies, but parallel dimensions and higher planes, whole dimensional levels, that run the mechanics of keeping it all in place, so that beings like us can have experience. The reason we're in the lower worlds, ultimately, is to discover through our suffering and through our trials new ways of doing things, to go back to that source from whence we came and download it there, to come up with new ways to change these lower worlds retire the experiment of evil, which is a failed experiment and doesn't work, backfired terribly, and put something in place that actually motivates people without evil to only create that which will be uplifting for all life. And to do that, beings need to wake up to what all life is out there, not just life on Earth, all of it. Because then they have the right to go and freely play in it with others.
Mhm.
That's how it works. People on Earth aren't there, so they're quarantined.
Yeah. Well, now, if they're retiring this experiment of evil, which is a good thing, um, is there anything that we can do as an individual being that
Oh, yeah.
helps that process?
Well, what I do and have done for many decades here is to work with the hue, particularly in my case, the new ray in the hue. The hue is the first word, the omnipresent first sound behind all creation.
Okay.
It would built the upper worlds. It was there and all the things and beings there, created a void, a barrier, then created a split in the energy, positive and negative, and created the etheric, mental, causal, astral, physical worlds, and 144 levels in each one. And beings went down into it to try to see how they could make the lower dimensions mirrors of the upper worlds the way they worked through a dual current system. It was an experiment.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
But we were already there before time and space existed down here. The Atma is not something made of time and space, and you can't even determine its age relative to time and space. The age of a galaxy. It's not even relative. So what we really are is not this. We're not DNA. We're not any of this. This body, this form, this type of DNA, twin-stranded, existed several billion years ago out in the galaxies and did not originate on this planet. It was evolved through higher scientists, spiritual scientists, and developed to this point to where when you use 100% of the brain that's already developed 100%, you have all these higher capabilities you can run through that body, through a physical body, levitate, do this, anti-gravity, telepathy, photographic memories, all that kind of thing. That's all capable and possible when you use 100% of the brain instead of 6 to 10 that people on Earth are said to, the scientists say that's all we use. They only use that much because there are certain genomes on their DNA that have been deliberately shut off. You get in a body here on Earth, born through your parents, and you're stepping into a body that when you push the higher buttons you're used to making, it doesn't work.
Keep pushing the button. It's not working.
And then you're going, oh crap, where am I? I'm on Earth. No, it doesn't. So
Get me out of here.
we have to figure out a way to turn those back on. For myself, I go into the hue in a kind of contemplation. It's much deeper than meditation because it involves the active use of the creative imagination. If I don't see into the multiverse and know things, who will do it for me? No one. No one will do it for me. Because if I either see and know things or I do not. And if I don't, someone outside is telling me what to believe in. And they're usually tyrants. They want power and money and whatever they want. They don't want people free-spirited, free thinking. A normal human being would never think of harming any other life. They don't need to be controlled through politics and police. People that are suppressed and terribly closed in from what they once knew can flip out and go postal and start shooting anybody. Most Atmas are so powerfully strong, even all this suppression won't make them do that. A couple here and there will do it. They'll flip out because they're being suppressed the whole life. They have no effect on anything. And they feel like they're being the effect of everything. So they just try to destroy something just to have an effect on something. There aren't suicides and people going postal on other planets. They don't even carry guns. They're outlawed.
They don't need it.
There's no radioactive materials and nuclear bombs on those. Were banned a long time ago as useless wastes of energy. There's no constructive use for them whatsoever. Do you know how much energy it takes to refine a nuclear product, to run a nuclear power plant that will kill you if it gets out of its lead-lined container? From an isotope that was man-made to be altered so it's that radioactive? It takes a huge amount of energy just to create that. To do what? Boil water. How absurd is that? To boil water, to drive steam, to make turbines go around like dams do to create electricity. And from the spent fuel rod, you can refine it to bomb grade ore, which is how they got the original atomic bomb ore to refine from the first nuclear reactors. They weren't made for electricity, and Alamogordo and stuff. They were designed to get bomb material back then that way.
Really?
And then they figured out some way to make a monetary gain off all this.
Of course.
Takes 10% of the cost to run what's natural gas power plant over a nuclear one. 10%. So why did they spend 10 times more to do a dangerous radioactive power plant?
I never could figure that out.
10 times the cost. It's because of the ore they get out of it. Side benefits.
Really? So where does that ore go then?
And they did all this and classified it because they thought they were doing the best thing to keep people ignorant of extraterrestrials they had to deal with, good and bad, until we could get this world balanced more, especially after World War II. Hitler and Japan and Mussolini and all that kind of stuff, and then communism and then Stalin and nuclear competition and all that kind of thing. The bomb technology for nuclear weapons was given to people on Earth illegally through Nazi German scientists. Little gray guys compelled against their will to download information, breaking an off-world treaty to give them an edge up they did not earn. And Hitler lost the war, but he was trying to develop the bomb first. The technology was brought to this world quite illegally. It's banned outside of here, so only tyrants would know about it or want to give it to people on Earth. Why? To get them to destroy 6.5 billion people here, so that you can bring it down to a controllable mass, take over another planet, and use its resources. They're not respecters of human beings. The beings I'm talking about that tried to do that are not respecters of human beings at all. And yet they have some human DNA in them.
Really?
Goes back in galactic history to the development of different races that walk on two legs with two arms and have digits to manipulate and do things that the Atma could run. Not just human was experimented on this way. It wasn't done for diabolical purposes back then. It was done to create body forms that higher beings could run and have their higher faculties work through them so that they're tuned, the DNA and everything's tuned to be able to run higher energy. If you shut off certain genomes on the DNA in a human being, it's passed on genetically. It's DNA. So you get people, if you want to enslave them or you want to keep them from knowing the dirty deeds you've done as mass genocide and this kind of thing back in galactic history, capture them, put a field of energy around them. You can't destroy the atom itself, but you can make it forget all it once knew and stick it in a body on Earth without its permission and make it told it to forget and to reincarnate here compulsively. Now think about that. How many lives have you spent on this world over and over again with no memory of any other? Or very little.
How do they make you forget them all?
You gotta think in this, you gotta get your head off of this planet because it's done through the misuse of much more evolved science that evolved beyond the history of life on this planet, out in the universe, was already there. Tyrants are not capable of creating, ever, anything new. They steal it from those who do, or murder and rape and pillage to get it. Tyrants, because their nature is negative, dominating, negative emotions, fear and terror, they will be done to them first. If they don't do it to you first, that's a tyrant. Suppress you totally so that you can't do it to them. That's the subconscious misprogramming of tyrants. It was done to them too, out in the stars. Way back in galactic history. They can't help themselves. People on Earth that lie to everybody else can't help that either. It's compulsive, subconscious. affects their nervous system. So they make the wrong decision. They go this way instead of fixing it. There are no more tyrants on bases underground on this planet from the stars. They were taken out of here. No, it's not public knowledge. No more little grays are abducting people in spaceships and doing DNA tests on them anymore. That's over. That too has been stopped. Now people are talking about things that happened 20, 30 years ago, classified spacecraft that happened 20, 30 years ago. What's taking place right now is not any of that. The only way you're going to get people on Earth to become aware of it is to get them to wake up to use their higher faculties again as an Atma, not a body, so they can see into the multiverse, connect in this omnipresent force, and get some true direct experience. So I'll go into you. Vibrates the faculty of the pineal gland in the center of the brain. Turns certain things on, opens a doorway. It goes telepathically, which is not psychic. Psychic energies work in the 4 lower dimensions. The communication that is untamperable cannot be penetrated by or affected by any negative energy, science, beings in or out of bodies, anywhere, and has been there since the beginning. Goes through the hue, the first sound. And when you hue, you're basically giving permission to and co-creating something constructive to get free of the trap you find yourself in to this omnipresent force, and it will co-create that. Once you're conscious, that's what it's doing. It starts to co-create that with you. And then you start to get yourself out of here. So I'll go into something where I will put the body in the trance state called sleep. Same thing everybody does as great experts on this planet without knowing it anymore consciously. Except that we'll put that into the trance state. It will go to sleep, be calm, heart works, blood works. It's running on automatic. You have a little energy linked to it through the pineal gland. It's made of a pure energy that cannot be penetrated by negative things, thought, emotion, technology, anything. And then you connect into that omnipresent field of energy that supports all life, the prime source, prime creator. I don't use the word supreme being because it connotes that you're worshiping a tyrant, a lord over all things that demands worship, etc. I've been to that source and go to that source every day, way above the void known to the Buddhists. Plug right into it. And that source has never required, requested, or insisted that we worship it, ever. It does insist on one thing, and so do we, that we respect all life. To do that, you have to be aware of what all life is. You cannot do that properly just being aware of a few human beings on one planet. I wonder if there's life in other worlds. That won't work. You can't be a co-creator with that source that way. You can't play in the multiverse and wake up thinking in such a limited consciousness because it's negative. It's biased, it's prejudicial, it's infantile, ludicrous even. All Atmas have the ability to recover what I'm sharing with you. Doesn't matter what state they're in. It's all manipulation. Something was done to them, not with their consent, in order for them to forget. And that's something they have a very hard time dealing with, confronting. Because once you confront it,
then you have to do something.
It becomes a memory. It's no longer subconsciously affecting you, the nervous system, or your decision making, and things progress very quickly after that. So I think you said you heard one of Perry Benson. I do a little radio show too, like this.
Yes, I always watch.
And anyway, that's what we're doing, you know. And one of you said we were talking about telepathy, I think, in your email to me, and you thought maybe some of the listeners that would hear this show would like some clarity on telepathy and what it is and what it is, kind of thing. Okay.
Yes, please, please.
I remember what we said at the beginning, you know, so I won't forget. I can get off into things that are so interesting to you, I think, because you're beginning to go, I remember what, that's right. How did I forget that? You know, things are starting to snap on in you. That's the way this works. When I'm talking with you on the show, it is telepathic. It is not psychic. I don't mean to put psychic down. That's not what I'm doing here. It means that in the 4 lower dimensions, the energy that is one above the void splits into 2 different currents. It's really kind of an illusion. One's positive, one's negative, and they're supposed to be woven around each other like DNA. And a third energy goes through them to manifest material things, worlds and planets and people and bodies and DNA. When you split the consciousness in an atma where they begins to think that these 2 currents are separate, and it objectively says that's good and that's bad, it's putting this pure energy from the core of its being, from the source, out into both streams, and they're opposed. They should be like this, not like this. When tyrants can get people to do this, they can cut their power in half, their ability to think in half, and they can be controlled, manipulated through outside fear and terror, keeping those programs running. And they're artificial.
Wow.
You want to shut those down by being consciously aware they're there, first of all. And then the more aware you become that something was done to you you did not agree to, stop just punning it off on some God you believe you can never meet or understand, because that's just sidetracking the whole thing. You know, we take responsibility for this experiment of evil as individual drops in a mighty ocean of the same pure energy that we are as beings, because that whole ocean created this experiment of evil, and that's all of us collectively. If we want to change evil as an experiment, whining about it will not do it. We have to work with countless other beings who are consciously doing this now beyond Earth, and cooperate with them and create with them this transformation for this planet. It's coming. So people have to be able to wake up enough to contribute to it. And then they'll just drop all this deception stuff. They won't even want it anymore.
Won't that be wonderful?
Boring as hell to them. They wouldn't even think about it. Right now, it's driven from programs. Even though tyrants are gone, the programs remain that were illegally implanted in people here, and in many people before they were brought here and stuffed in a body with no memory. It wasn't your choice. You didn't have a contract with your parents. God didn't say to you, go to earth, thou shalt go to earth as my humble servant, and thou shalt have no memory, for your own protection, of course, and you shall be born in a body, and you'll start over to get it right, and we'll wipe the slate clean so you won't have to worry about the stuff that happened that was bad to you. What?
Say
And
what?
I'm supposed to get it right with no faculties, not hardly, you're going to be stuck.
Oh my word.
Here's the thing about the Atma, no matter what's done to it in galactic history, in multidimensional history, it has always and always has this momentum at its core to co-create new ways of doing things with the source. That's its primary reason for existing. It is actually exactly the same as the prime source itself, prime creator, the source, beyond what people think of as a supreme being. And being that that's true, we have the ability telepathically, which means we don't use the energies of the lower planes that can fool you. One can be good one day, psychic prediction, completely wrong the next. Completely right, completely wrong, it's completely unreliable because it's working with the dual energy that has nothing to do with the pure energy that makes up the Atma or the source it's in communication with. It gets in the way. If you want to go beyond what we call psychic into the pure energy field so that you have dominion over what's positive and negative, so you can know what's going on accurately, you have to do it from above the lower dimensions as a being. You got to get across the void that most Buddhist monks say that's all there is, and into the higher worlds where energy works differently. Create it there with others, and that can change these lower worlds.
And there's the telepathy too.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Telepathy is a direct link into the omnipresent divine spirit
That's what okay.
Okay, I hate to use the word divine. People have abused the hell out of it, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not what people think it is. It's not there for their use, selfish use. This primordial, omnipresent energy running through all things is in the void of space. It's not oxygen, but it's energy. And the Atma out of body can see it. Instruments on Earth can see the color and beauty of light and sound coming from nebula and galaxies you can't see with the physical eyes. But it's there. The energy between the black so-called void of space is blank and black to physical eyes and their limited ability to see a certain amount of spectrum. But in actuality, there's just nothing but brilliant light out there in the void of space. It's not dark at all. Dark matter is not dark. It's just dark to physical eyes looking at it because they're not designed to see past a certain spectrum. That's all. Speed of light, that's nonsense. There are energies going so much faster than the speed of light that the physical being of a brain and a body can detect. What do you think extraterrestrials travel on? The speed of light? No. Oh, heck no.
Light's too slow, huh?
That's too slow for space and time and the distances that have been created. Yeah, of course it is. So as an Atma, you can go in any dimension, in any direction, across 1,000 galaxies or up into the higher worlds instantly. It's called direct projection. You can go the more entertaining way in what's called bilocation and be in more than one place at one time, knowing you're running bodies on different planes and knowing what they are and who they are and what they're doing. And you can go to other planets and you can go and get on spaceships with beings who are human, who are consciously aware of what the Atma is. They know it themselves. So if you visit their ships and you come in an Atma form, they can see you and talk with you, even though your body's back on Earth. This is a normal higher function of a normal human being who's not from planet Earth, by the way. Normal. So Earth is really,
not from planet Earth.
really backward. But it has great, incredible potential. In my view, human beings on Earth, as closed down and suppressed as they are, have some of the greatest potential to contribute new ways of doing things in the multidimensional creation of beings anywhere else.
It's amazing if you think about what they've even done, considering how suppressed they are.
That's what amazes friends of mine from out of town, meaning off-world.
Help us!
We can go. I can take a group.
We have so much to offer.
I can take a group of people into the higher worlds on a Zoom session and get them to begin to recall how to use their imagination when they're suppressed with a primary implant in their subconscious, and they do it anyway. That's surprising to beings who do not have subconscious minds, how the hell we're doing that. And they go with us on these journeys to contribute to the safety of what we're doing from tyrants, but also to learn new ways of doing things from us. There are people on Earth who used to be great friends and allies of people out in other worlds before they were caught and brought here. And they're just now becoming aware of many of those beings. They've finally been able to locate them because their energy signatures were masked by tyrants. They've been able to locate them on Earth from a distance. And they begin to contact people. They begin to help people. They're working with classified people and generals and government people, the populace. It's like, you know.
That's happening right now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It is. The past prophesied destructive destiny of this world, prophesied thousands of years ago, whether it's theosophical or philosophical or religious or Nostradamus or any of that stuff. When you looked at the future from that perspective at that time, they saw a nuclear war and the end of the world. But that hasn't happened. It's 2019. The end of the Mayan calendar, which ended their one calendar, began a new calendar. To the Mayan shamans and how to read their calendar, it had nothing to do with the Bible or anything biblical or Rome or any of that. It had to do with the end of the experiment of evil on Earth. That's what they say. They are simple people. They don't know what form it will take, but that's what they know it is. not the archaeologists that first interviewed those Mayans their training was in Christendom and that kind of thing, and they tried to fit it into a Armageddon type of philosophy where it does not fit. It never did. They not only ignored what the shamans told them, they twisted it.
See, that doesn't.
So those shamans went underground, wouldn't talk to any white people or anybody from outside for a long time. And they've come back out of that hiding recently because it's the change going on now. Most of the shamans of the Indian tribes and Dalai Lama himself have had a conclave meeting where they've all agreed this change is happening now. And they aren't given public airing on news prime time.
Of course not.
Ignored. They're primitive tribes. We don't listen to them, kind of an attitude. Most of those primitive tribes in this world know they were brought here by extraterrestrials to this day, including the Hopi. You think they're going to listen these people out, these sophisticated PhD people are going to listen to these simple tribes people? They might know something. No. But it's true. So what's taking place that cannot be reversed is going to move through this planet. The people that are in control now, at first were terrified of that because they knew they could not control it. If it affected in any way. Weapons won't work, nothing works. And yet they were never targeted and put up against a wall and burnt to a crisp with laser beams from spaceships for being the tyrants they are. Because the beings that looked at them knew they were manipulated against their will by a technology and the misuse of it by tyrant races out beyond this earth in a way that no one could prepare or see it coming on this planet. They couldn't have defended themselves against it. They couldn't have stopped it. So no one's being targeted. And they know over these years, no one from the stars that are good organizations or have any interest in harming anyone here or destroying governments or anything else. They have an interest in transforming the consciousness of the beings who run them because they're not operating from true free will. They just aren't. And that's destructive always. Basically, this goes back to the fact that in many other world systems in galactic history, just take our galaxy alone. When they reached the stage where governments were at each other, nobody got along, and they're going to blow themselves up with technology. In the ancient past, they let worlds do that. And they were negatively affected, the good guys, over time, because they did nothing. It's like the law of non-interference. Except that can bite you in the rear end if you use it as an excuse not to be responsible for beings who aren't operating from true free will, and you let them destroy yourselves. You know who's responsible for that then? The beings who are conscious, because they did nothing. So they know better. Earth is not going to be allowed to be destroyed in nuclear war ever. I have absolutely no fear, hesitation, anticipation, trepidation, or anything else about the future of this planet. None whatsoever. I don't live in it because of what I know. And yet most people on Earth are terrified of everything. It's not their governments they're terrified of. They know there's lying to them. Then it's extraterrestrials, perhaps, or fear of the future, or what happens when you die, and whose religion is right, and what's right, and what God will favor you, and what one will shoot a lightning bolt in your ass for not blindly worshiping it. That kind of thing is the way most people are run here. 1 second. Hello. Hey, I'm just on with the radio show with Gail. So we'll be ready about 5:30, my time. No worries, you're good. You're good. This is Michael. Thanks to you, Mike. Okay, so I have a private session with him later. We'll go on a journey and explore more of what co-creating in the higher worlds is like. And interesting that we can do it while we're right here on Earth.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
Bucket of water down the well, you know, to feed your family. It's yeah. So I work with the Hue, It's not a patented, copyrightable, or possessable energy by any organization or religion, spiritual or otherwise, on any planet in any dimension. That's impossible, because it's like an energy that constantly moves. You can't, it's like grabbing the air. You can't do it. There's no way you can control that. It supports all life, good and bad, and you can't manipulate it from lower physical consciousnesses. You can move energies around co-creatively through the imagination to create or destroy things, but you can't control the primary source that way. It doesn't control beings, it co-creates with them. Think about how liberating that is. You mean the source behind our life means for us to co-create with it? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's big.
That's the real deal. Anything else is just tyrant talk. Wow. In between that source, propping themselves up as the pure source. They're not. And they were given permission to do that at some point in the past, to run whole dimensions.
They were?
Yeah, astral, causal, mental, etheric. But the beings that run them are tyrants.
Yes, they are.
They demand worship, and then they get your recycling back into incarnations. And over time, you could say in billions of years, maybe you get purified to become what? Free to live up in some heaven somewhere, playing a harp with your naked butt on a cloud, picking flowers until you get so bored you want to blow the whole thing up? That's not the way the upper worlds work. In the upper worlds, beings never get tired. They don't get fatigued. They don't eat. They don't go to the bathroom. They create for the good of all life, 24/7. There are no suns, no moons, no stars. Places in creation in fields of energy that people co-create in. Suns and moons and planets are lower world creations for the 4 lower dimensions. And bodies are developed, higher science, DNA brought up. Okay, how do we get a human being to use 100% of the brain? And can I use my higher faculty of direct knowing perception in the grand multidimensional universe and know stuff and talk with people from other planets? Can I get the human body to be aware of this? Can I use that channel, the human body, to help change a whole reality so that it becomes a mirror of the upper worlds? You can't do that until you retire evil as an experiment. So something is underway now that's never taken place in all the history of creation. Something new, something unexpected. Who are we to tell the source behind all life it can't what to go do with itself, and that it can't change its mind or change prophesied Armageddon into something else? How arrogant do we think we are to tell a source infinitely beyond us what to go do with itself just to support our religion or our belief? That's absurd. It's the other way around, you know. If people on Earth stopped having to worship something and started respecting life, everything would change.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Start respecting life and stop worshiping.
Now, how can people do that if they're not aware of what life exists beyond this world that deserves their respect? And in other dimensions, other realities. The only reason mechanical devices can be created to go through a wormhole or travel through other dimensions or go to other planets or get on anti-gravity ships is because the Atma can do it by itself first. Then it figures out ways to get bodies to do it. You catch my drift?
Yes, that's pretty amazing.
That's how it works. Okay. With that said, telepathy is what you do all the time anyway without knowing it. Give you an example. You're walking down the street and you're 20 years old and you're hormonal driven and you're a young man and there's this beautiful one with a tight little, bottom and she's wiggling across the street and she's a block away and you throw this, wow, that's really cute. She turns around and looks right at you and smiles. She picks up on it, walks about her business without giving it a second thought, accustomed to it. That's telepathy. It's not psychic. People are still telepathic on this planet, but they're not conscious of it. They call it intuition, happenstance. So really, what they're doing is functioning in a higher way without knowing it anymore. They're still doing it. They're just not conscious of it. Telepathy, in communicating and plugging yourself in of will, of true free will, into the source, connects you to that primary field of energy, what people call the God particle. in the Large Hadron Collider, CERN, Switzerland,
Mhm.
because they know there's something behind all of this quantum physics, but it's not atomic in nature, doesn't behave according to the laws of physics. So they call it the God particle. They know it's in the void of space. They don't know what it is or what to do with it. They just know it's there. Mathematically, they can prove there are 11 other major dimensions beyond the physical. They don't know how to access them. They don't remember, see. Many beings on many worlds do and grow up knowing this from birth. They bring their other awareness of their other lives with them into that child's body. They'll grow a body up to full adult status in a few months. And then the being can operate fully in a new body. You know, if they need a new one, they may not need one for 1,000 to 10,000 years. Depends on what your mission is in life. Some people live 1,000 years, some people 800, some people 15,000. But it's done for a reason, for a purpose. Turn on certain genomes so the body, if it doesn't get squashed by a falling boulder, it can live basically 36 to 38 years old for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years without aging. It's controlled by the genome switches on the DNA. Completely.
Well, I wish they would let us know what those aging switches are, so we can.
Of course, yeah, I know, but it hasn't become the time yet when that higher technicians and people can be brought here and give it to us freely. They're not going to do that until we're not insane nutcase pretzels wrapped and twisted in incredible unconscious ways. They're not going to provide that to people who would just unconsciously abuse it without even meaning to.
Without even knowing.
Right. So that would be destructive to do that. It'd be like giving a loaded hand grenade to a 2-year-old child and asking him to pull levers until it blows up. You know, you just don't do that. So first thing is to get people rehabilitated as to who they are that isn't physical, get them functioning, communicating with beings from other worlds and things that can do that, and then start to work with them. Because then people on Earth start to become a co-creator to liberate their own planet with help from very far out of town. That's what my work is all about here. It's why I came to this planet more than 60 years ago. I'm not from here. Originally, I came here to work with government leaders to help them accept this transformation at a time when they could not have and wouldn't have. They were too paranoid of everything. There wasn't nuclear arms race with the former Soviet Union after World War II. The fact that we got Nazi SS scientists pardoned and brought into Russia and the United States to continue bomb and other research they were doing in Germany anyway, then that technology for our culture was not earned by our own scientists here on this planet. And it's illegal to even use it outside of this earth. So who or what snuck it into the Nazi German scientists? How did they set Hitler up to be the murderer of 3/4 of the population of this planet? That was what they were doing.
For real? Yeah.
And that didn't happen, did it?
No.
And so were the people influencing them. But the influenced people were brought into both countries, and that has influenced policy and classified systems ever since. Was not the best thing to do. They were manipulated to believe it was the best thing to do, but it wasn't. It got them in bed with beings and tyrants in bases in ways that they wanted to extricate themselves from it, and they didn't know how to do it.
They were dealing with beings that had more higher technology, more knowing, more everything than they did.
Oh yeah, I mean, they didn't even see it coming. Beginnings of the CIA under Truman, they didn't see it coming. They met with some tyrants. Guy wears a little device on his belt, pushes a button. Next thing you know, a president has a subconscious mind through which he can be controlled. He doesn't lose intelligence or his sense of humor, but what influences his decision-making is now in place.
Wow.
Without his awareness. That's illegal. And it was stopped many times without directly controlling governments here. Tyrants only do that. Good guys don't want to control governments here. They want governments to do the right thing for their own people, to be enlightened people, to be awake and aware. So they're going about this process in a non-destructive way. The classified hidden government on this planet knows they have not been targeted, or they could have been taken out a long time ago. I know every single one of them, what they think, how they act, where they are, where they're classified, what they're doing. They haven't been shot. They're being gradually helped to let go and to do what they originally agreed to do, tell all the people the truth. And they've got to do it in a way that's beneficial to all life, including the people in power now, because they're not doing what they're doing free will. That they're not doing.
You know, that is the only thing that makes it possible for people to overlook some of the horrendous things that they've done, because they were manipulated to do so.
Well, right, exactly. When they recover properly, beings in the universe who know people were murdered by them or justifying it in the name of mass security, their remorse, they're not going to be required to live in guilt. The beings whose bodies they took are still alive. No Atma has ever perished in the history of creation. Doesn't matter who they are. They could be twisted to be the most evil thing, but sooner or later that mask around that being will drop off. And then that being commits themselves to fixing the messes in the lower dimensions, to erasing subconscious minds in other people. The tyrants become co-creators to help change it. They've got nothing better to do with their time than fix all the damage they've done. That's exactly how that's going to work.
Who would know better, too, when you think about it?
You know, and if, you know, because, well, they're not the only ones. There'd be people from other worlds as well involved. They're not going to be left to their own to do it. We're all starting to get help on this planet that is unexpected from off planet. Mm-hmm. If we were really alone in the universe, this world we would all be dead. Nuclear war would have happened decades ago. And they tried many times, and it was stopped from off planet. Launch computers just shut down in space. And they don't tell people that either, because they have to admit that they really aren't in control of certain things, and they couldn't maintain the systems they have, including classified systems, reverse engineer over time, extraterrestrial technology, some of which has been made into good products for people, fiber optics, computer, microscopic level etching technology for little discs, you know, which is made out of silica and that kind of thing. We've got most of our technology we enjoy today, not from the good guys, but from tyrants who illegally imported it here, breaking an off-world treaty, including nuclear bombs. We did not develop it on our own. The Nazi scientists weren't brighter. They were given an edge up illegally. That's what's classified, the fact that people know that's what was done. You don't tell people after World War II stuff like that and get them to be baby boomers and rebuild a damaged world. That was their thinking at the time. Mm-hmm. That thinking was a little off the mark. It sounded right, but it was really done by tyrants to continue to get resources off this planet after the war.
Yeah, it hasn't it hasn't stopped, so it's still going on.
Russia, China, United States, many countries are still seeking extraterrestrial technology. If you're working with tyrants, they're hornswoggling you, hoodwinking you, backstabbing you, throwing you bones to really get control of the planet. And in the end, they had planned to murder all the hidden government people they were controlling violently and take over. That was their plan. You cannot trust them. You can't be Illuminati or an elite and trust them. They would murder you when they're done using you without hesitation. So you see, these people got themselves into a hell of a deal. They didn't know how to get out of it safely. The only people they had a treaty with would have murdered them violently eventually. So you see, the intervention that's happened on this planet has been to their benefit as well, but for the benefit of all life. It's not a normal planet of mammalian, plant, and animal life either. There's huge, massive, out of proportion populations of bacteria alone on this planet that was imported here that competes with human evolution and DNA. We call it disease. It takes hold when the imagination is focused in the negative. because that debilitates the immunity and some of the DNA functioning and all that. And the reverse of that is true when people want to be healed of a disease. Their imagination is central to keeping it focused in one way consistently until the disease has no energy to get to, and it just ceases to exist. On their worlds, they got rid of competitive microscopic life that was in the beginning of experimenting to build forms like this. Mm-hmm. When they were done doing it, you do away with them because now you've got the form. You don't want bacteria, and they're competing. On Earth, there's all kinds of bacteria competing with everything. It's out of control. They don't even have a cure for the common cold on this backward planet, much less a cure for anything else. So, it's pretty absurd. To beings that are from outside this world, this planet looks, oh my God. It's not just backwards. It's really twisted.
We must look like idiots.
Well, if you're not functioning on all thrusters, you're going to sound like one too.
Yeah.
So let's go on a little journey for the benefit of the listeners, yours and mine too. I always do it with this intent. I'll start these tones. I'm going to go into the hue. Let's see what time we have. Okay, good. We got time. And then what I usually do is ask people listening if they can, or do it later, to get comfortable, get in a chair, lie on their back, be very peaceful. It's like you're going to put your body to bed at night, except you're going to stay alert and hear my voice. My voice and what I do is a telepathic function. Forget about Zoom and satellites. Consider it a direct telepathic function to you and anybody listening. And not just from me, but from friends I work with from out of town. And that this is a way for beings to begin to recall that they are telepathic. And when they do that, they begin to know things again. And doubt and fear and uncertainty, speculation and theory begin to drop away from their lives. The Atma itself, waking up, will do this. Okay. Imagine, well, first of all, put any fear you have of the future, of your own life, or where you're going when you die and all that kind of thing, and fear of the future survival of this planet on a shelf somewhere aside from this session. Imagine it being in a computer disk on the carpet in the background, on a tabletop. All negative emotions, put them aside just for this time. You'll pick them back up when we come back. This is just simply imagining. Same way you imagine a butterfly or a waterfall. It's just that simple. Make it effortless. Just know you're putting the negative stuff aside for now. And this is something the Atma can do of true free will. And imagine someone you love and respect, that you're grateful they're in your life. It can be a person, place, or thing, but it's something that when you imagine it makes you smile inside. Send out this statement because the words are created in a particular structure very carefully. Think of it like this is what you're saying telepathically to the living, omnipresent sound and energy behind all creation that comes from a place called Prime Creator, the Source. Many dimensions below the lower dimensions and many very far away from here. And yet part of it runs through everything in all dimensions. And we are comprised of exactly the same energy on a smaller scale as an individual being. You never lose your individual characteristics or individual personality or individual capabilities to co-create. That's forever. But you can plug what you are into the whole of it and know and be wise far beyond your own capability. Then I'll send out these tones, and they'll be raised in vibration to bring up an energy through affecting the pineal gland in a certain way so that you can put your body in the trance state we call sleep, just like you do every night. The difference is, as the pineal gland secretes melatonin and creates serotonin, the body will go and will breathe, and the lungs and heart will work while you're out, while you're in this seeing imaginatively what's out there. And when you're doing it, you will realize at some point you are really away from the body, really doing this. That changes everything. I'll begin these tones now. When I'm sending out these hues on these different levels, it is making contact with who you are as an Atma, running different forms on different dimensional levels. So we're endeavoring to awake those aspects of your higher self up to help you more here. And even if you don't understand this now, it doesn't matter. A part of you does. You may not be conscious of it yet again, but once you did, know this. First thing you need to give yourself is that you have the capability to understand and know all of this. Knowing this is not relative to the limitations of a human body or a human brain. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with you who imagines, the one who can see and hear things. When the eyes are shut off, when the ears are closed, when you are in a trance state called sleep, you, the real you, is still conscious. And you can see a beautiful hummingbird flying and hovering in front of your face with a rainbow-colored body. You can feel your bare feet walking in tall lavender grass. You can smell the air of gardenias and lavender. And these aren't even on Earth. Big flowering plants off to the edge of a violet field, 4 feet high with huge petals that have a self-luminous or luminescence to them. When you look up, you can see 3 moons. They look like Earth with oceans, no polar ice caps. And there's civilizations on all three, and they're small compared to the planet you're standing on. You can be in space, above Earth, as an Atman now, a spherical being of energy, not the physical body, with many other beings, myself and Gail and many other people I know, master teachers from beyond Earth, the Sayres ambassador Torellian, a very good friend, a very highly evolved being who is always with me on these journeys. He comes from the Sayres, which is a human race, and we're billions of years old. That race immortalized their physical bodies over 1 billion years ago. So when you see a physical form from him, he's manifesting it into physical matter from the Atma he is in a conscious way. When he's done utilizing it, he'll dissolve it back into pure energy. This is the way higher beings function. So you'll see how that discoloration in consciousness begins to dissipate. When you look out of your eyes in this way, you can see the multiverse, depending on where you're aware of and where you focus your imagination. If you don't know what the Atma plane looks like, the first major division above the void known to most Buddhist monks, if you can't see it, how are you going to tell this omnipresent living energy where to take you? Let's make a little journey from outer space. Look at the Earth. You can see Torellian, we're forming a circle of spherical beings around him, not because he's a mastery over us, but because he serves as a focal point. He's a very evolved being. So we don't get scattered, so we can get something constructively done in this time we have. You can see the polar ice caps of Earth, just like you would if you were on board the space shuttle, or just floating in space as an energy. And you can see the barren moon circling the planet, does not turn on its axis. We always see the same face of the moon facing us. We never see the backside of that planet, that moon. You can see that there is a field of energy extending out in the so-called black void of space. But as the Atma, you can see it is a white field of light with golden little lights going off in it. And it connects everything, all the billions of stars you see around you, the moon, the earth, each of us. That energy flows right through the white core of our beings. And we're moving in co-creative harmony with it. And the Atma can see it. It's really not black void of space. It doesn't have atmosphere like oxygen, but it has energy. All things are connected together. You can see a field of energy open up above your head or above the being you are. If you feel a physical body there, it's an energy projection from the spherical Atma that you are. And you can do that so others can see who you are and vice versa, but it's just energy. You'll see an interdimensional doorway, like a donut-shaped whirl of blue stars open up in space. And we're going to move up through it, all of us. When you get through this blue-violet tunnel that's whirling around you, come out the other side quite quickly. You're approaching, you're in a void. It looks like a huge, empty nothing. It's not black, it's not white, it's just doesn't appear to be anything here. And as we're moving forward, you begin to see a long white beach in every direction, straight as an arrow. And we're going to fly over the top of a jungle-covered beach and come into a clearing. There's a snow-capped mountain range in the background. And we're going to come into a clearing that has a fountain in a botanical garden surrounding a white marble floor. It's on a pedestal, and it looks like white alabaster, scalloped edges, and there's a statue of a man with a bald head, bronzed of skin, with two golden bracelets on each of his upper arms, a little white tunic-type skirt from his waist down to his ankles and bare feet, with his palms of his hands opened outward by his hips, facing downward, and there is a golden white light pouring from the palms of his hands into this bowl of this fountain, flowing in an even, glistening sheet over the edge and dropping into the ground and vanishing. When you look to the right, you can see this man standing there, his real living form smiling at us. This is the first realm or plane or dimension above the void known to most Buddhist monks, and it is one of the homes of the Atma. The energy here doesn't work like the energy in the lower worlds. You're going to see the statue of this being, he points to it, turn into a shaft of golden white light. And then you float upward with Torelli and myself, Gail, and you simply enter it as the Atma. And you can feel this roaring energy, this first sound, like millions of men and women singing the hue on multiple levels, racing through your being. Doesn't harm you. It's moving through you for your benefit, but also going to other worlds for the benefit of all life. It is something you can co-create with the imagination, but you cannot possess it, bind it, hold it, put it in a box. And just float in it, because this is very charging in a certain kind of way to help you remember in the lower worlds, in the body back on Earth, this journey. See this white core of energy flowing through you and send it down the fountain, down out of this, across the beach, out into the void, down through the vortex, down into you hovering around, Torelling above Earth, looking at its polar ice caps, down into your room or car, or wherever you are, gently into the top of your head, where it spreads out and radiates out from the pineal gland as a radiant sun in every direction through your physical body. And it continues to move through you for the uplifting benefit of all life. This is something you have to co-create with it. Then when you're ready, open the eyes of the physical body. You'll bring it out of the trance state called sleep, and remember. This is a very short, powerful exercise of higher faculty capability. So we'll have that recorded. I don't want to get too far out there, but I just helped people make a journey across, above the astral, causal, mental, etheric, across the void into the first major plane where what you call enlightenment takes place. People are going there, as dim as it might be for them, and establishing themselves there to bring back this transformation co-creatively of their own true free will. And the beings and the personnel and the techniques and the technology they need to begin to unravel this tight knot of unconsciousness will cross their path.
That makes me happy.
That's good. So I want to leave your listening audience with that. We'll do more next time. We'll go in a different direction, visit a parallel dimension on Earth, and go and see what's there. Because there is worlds in our own space in a different molecular time rate with beings living on it, right where Earth is now, that you don't know is there. Most people don't. And those beings are conscious. They can come from their reality into ours and back, and they do all the time. If they had not also been helping us, this world would have been destroyed.
Wow.
So we're good there. So with your permission, Gail, do you have anything else you'd like to ask about telepathy or anything else?
Not at this time. I think we can cover anything else that we might have next time.
Okay, Gail, I wish you the best. I will stop the recording so we have an official end to this session.
Okay.
This is for the public, and then you and I can chat. I wish you all the best out there listening, and particularly pleasant dreams.
Thank you, listening audience.
What do you call your show again? Free range.
Free range.
There we go.
Free range, where we can talk about anything. We're free to talk about anything.
Yeah, for my choice, I'm only going to talk about that which is of uplifting benefit. Oh, there's the thing I want people to send out.
Freedom does that.
When people send out the hue, I forgot to tell them this one statement. I was going to describe it. They should send out.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
It goes like this. You get into this state, you get peaceful, you put your fears aside, you imagine someone you love, then you go into the hue for 5 or 10 minutes and you go, safely show me deliberately hidden truth on a grand multidimensional scale and the much greater knowing of the expansive love within it. That's telling this energy what to go do with you.
I've got that memorized.
You do it with the intent that your awakening will be of benefit to all life. Very important.
Yes.
See you later, everybody.
Thank you.